3D shapes and nets. In this video we're going to look at several different 3D shapes that you need to know the name of for your GCSE exam, and also a couple of key terms: faces, edges and vertices, and we're also going to look at drawing nets of 3D shapes. So the first three things I said was faces, edges and vertices. These are three key terms that you have to know for your exam, because you could be asked to identify for a 3D shape how many faces it's got, which is how many sides of the shape it's got, the edges, which is where two faces meet, and the vertices, which is any points on the shape. So we've got these three key terms that we're going to use when looking at several shapes below. Also, we're asked to draw a net. Now, a net is where the shape is folded out. So you're left with a 2D diagram of the 3D shape, whereas if you folded it all up, it'd go back to the 3D shape. Now, for some 3D shapes, there's more than one possible net, but I'm just going to draw one on this video for each diagram. So, for the following, give the shape's name, find the number of faces, edges and vertices, and draw the net of the shape. So the first one here that we've got is we have a cube, and a cube is very special because it's got 6 faces that are all squares. So this first shape is a cube. Number of faces, it has got 3 faces we can see at the front, and it's also got exactly the same 3 faces on the other side. So it's got 6 faces. Number of edges, well, each part where we've got a connection between a face, so here we've got an edge, here, 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 here. So there's 4 along the top, there's 4 along the bottom, and there's 4 around the side. So that's 12 in all. Number of vertices, well, that's the number of points. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 4 more on the bottom, so that's 8. And finally, we're asked to draw a net of the shape. So this is if we took this cube and folded it out. But remember, they're all going to be squares, and we need to make sure that we've got 6 of these squares. So what I'm starting off with is, if we looked at this middle section, we've got 1 square, this front one. This one represents the bottom, and what we need to put on is the back one. So we're going to have 1 more square for the back. Then we've now got to add on this side and this side. Now they're not going to carry on the bottom, otherwise it will just be one long tube. So we're actually going to add it onto the side of this shape. It doesn't matter where, you could have 1 here and you could have 1 here. But as long as you've got 1 on this side and 1 on this side, you're fine. Now this represents a cube, and as I said, there is actually more than one way of drawing a net of a cube. This is just one example. The second shape we've got here is like a Coke can, and it's called a cylinder. It's called a cylinder. Now, a cylinder has got a face on the top, a face on the bottom, and this one circles round. So that is 3 faces. Also, it's got, if we count number of edges, well, this is where faces meet the edge. Well, there's only 2 here. There's one at the top here, and there's another one around the bottom. So it's got 2 edges. Vertices, well, it has no points on this shape, so there's no vertices. And finally, if we were to draw a net of this shape, well, what it's made up of is this top section is a circle and the bottom's a circle. So we've got 2 circles. And if you to unravel this section in the middle, you'd have a rectangle. Right, this shape here on the right hand side is called a cuboid. It's a little bit similar to a cube, apart from this time it's got 3 pairs of rectangles. So this front rectangle here is the same as the back one, this top one is the same as the bottom one, and this front one is the same as the back one. So, if we count up the number of faces and vertices and edges, it should have exactly the same as a cube, which means it's got 6 faces, 12 edges, and 8 vertices. And likewise, the net should look very similar. However, this time, it's going to be made up of 3 pairs of rectangles. So this front one, if we start off with, is slightly larger. And we've got this slightly smaller one on top. So we're going to draw the smaller one on top. Now the back one here is the same as this front one, so it's going to be a larger rectangle again. And finally, on the bottom, it's the same as the top one, so we're going to have a nice little small one again. Also, we've got to add on our 2 sides, so we've got our side here and our side here, which are exactly the same, but we're going to draw them here. So there is a net of a cuboid. A few more shapes to look at. What we have here is something called a triangular prism. A triangular prism. Now, I'm just going to discuss all the names of these 3 shapes before we go any further. This is a prism. The next one is a cone. And the final one is a square-based pyramid. You can also get triangular-based pyramids or pentagonal-based pyramids, but these are all pyramids. These 2 here are both pyramids. This is actually a circular-based pyramid. Now, what you notice about these ones and this one, this prism, is that these 2 here, the shape goes to a point. Whereas this prism, if you chopped it in half, you'd still have that exact same triangle halfway through. So a prism, you have this cross section at the end which appears all the way through. Whereas in a pyramid, the shape at the bottom goes up to a point or a vertices. So, if we count up the number of faces, edges and vertices on the triangular prism, what we have is we have one on the rear and 1 underneath, and 2 more, so that's 5 faces. We have 9 edges and we have 6 vertices. If we look at a cone, well, it's got 2 faces. It's got this one round the middle and 1 on the bottom. It's got 2 faces. It's got 1 edge at the bottom, and vertices, it has 1 point. On a square base pyramid, we have 5 faces, we have 5 edges, and we have 5 vertices. And the nets for these, well, the net of a triangular prism, well, these 3 shapes around the middle are all rectangles. So you've got 3 rectangles connected, and then at the ends, we have 2 triangles. On a cone, well, we have a circle, and then we have a shape connecting to that circle to form the curved bit around the cone. And finally, a square-based pyramid, where you have a square in the middle with 4 exactly the same size triangles which fold up to connect together to make the square-based pyramid.